Buenas noches. Good evening, everybody. My name is Liz Fernandez. I am the Job Fair Administrator for the NYSAIS Job Fair to Promote Diversity, which will be held on Saturday, February 22nd from 10 to 1 p.m. at Columbia Grammar and Preparatory School. All of the information is available on the website. And of course, you can always reach out to jobfair@nysais.org, which is an email that will come directly to me for any specific questions that you might have. This evening's theme for our webinar is career transitions to independent schools. And I am so excited and so grateful to the three panelists that we have invited to share their stories, their experiences. We have some questions. We've received some questions from some candidates who have previously attended the job fair and or might have an interest because they would like to make a transition to an independent school. So I am delighted, and in a moment I'm going to ask Andrea, Tatisha, and Naeem to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about who they are, where they're currently working, what is the role. If you could also tell us a little bit about the school that you are working within. What grades does it cover? Is there a religious affiliation? Is it specifically meant to, is it an all-gender school? Is it a special pedagogy? Is it serving a particular group of students, etc.? You all know. And then we'll dive into more of the questions. So Andrea, Tatisha, Naeem, again, thank you for your time, and we look forward to learning from you.
Thank you, Liz. I'll start. I'm Andrea Del Val, and I'm currently the Dean of Faculty at Poly Prep Country Day School. I also teach middle school history. And by the way, I have been at Poly Prep for 12 years, and I first got hired there 12 years ago by submitting my resume to the NYSAIS Job Fair for Diversity. So it's always a pleasure for me to do this kind of thing. It feels like a reunion of sorts. Before I started working as an associate teacher at Poly, which is how I started and got my foot in the door, I worked before that for the Center for Brooklyn History, when it used to be called the Brooklyn Historical Society, as a director of education, working a lot with student and teacher programs. And I also worked for nonprofits for about 3 to 5 years before that around New York City for museums, historic sites like the African Burial Ground Project. So doing a lot of student and teacher facing work about the history of New York.
And can you tell us a little bit about Poly Prep, the type of school, etc.?
So Poly Prep is an independent school following a sort of progressive ideology. It serves it's co-ed, serving students from nursery through 12th grade. And there are 2 campuses. So we are one school, but 2 campuses. Nursery through grade 4 is in Park Slope. And then grades 5 through 12 is on a bigger campus in Diker Heights.
All right, now you didn't unmute, so then I will go next. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tatisha Clark. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm the Assistant Head of School for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Mary McDowell Friends School, which is a K through 12 Quaker school located primarily in Brooklyn Heights in downtown Brooklyn. We have 3 buildings, a lower school, a middle school, and an upper school, and they're about 1.5 miles apart from each other. While we're also a Quaker school, we are primarily a school, a special ed school. So we take children that have language-based learning disabilities, so things like dyslexia or language processing supports. And we're also striving to be anti-racist. So those are sort of our 3 tenets that we speak to, or our 3 pillars here at Mary McDowell. I have been at this school for 7 years now. And I love every day that I'm here. So I don't know, Liz, is there anything else you want me to say about the school? All right, thank you.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Naeem Salam, Director of Finance and Operation at Brooklyn Friends School. In my first year at BFS right now. So learning, enjoying, and experiencing all the wonderful things about the community. The school goes from early childhood through 12th grade. Quaker-based school, incredible, again, community, incredible program. Yeah, I've been there again for about 6, 7 months now. And that's after doing a stint at a couple other independent schools, including Redwood Day School in Oakland, California, and Fernwood School in Los Angeles, and was one of the founding teachers for one of the first charter schools in Silicon Valley in the San Jose area in California. So my first time out on the East Coast, experiencing everything that New York has to offer, Brooklyn in particular, and excited to be a part of the panel this evening.
Thanks, everybody. So I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit about what work you did prior in a different industry before joining, or during the time that you, before you joined the independent schools that you're working within. And then, to think about what made you consider independent schools. Tell us a little bit about your professional journey without, going through every wonderful twist and turn that life offers. While you're all organizing your thoughts, I do want to point out to those of you that have joined us live and or are listening to this webinar as you prepare for the job fair or for an interview at some point this season. It is just coincidence that our 3 panelists are all from Brooklyn. I promise you it is just coincidence. I wanted to make sure that I had different stories and different voices as part of this tonight's theme of career transitions to independent schools. I assure you that many, many colleagues have made career transitions and work at many different schools throughout New York and throughout New York State, certainly, and absolutely within our city. It's just the way this evening unfolded, and I think it's a treat to be. I'm in the Bronx, and we have colleagues who are in the other B borough, as I say. So Brooklyn's in the house. And with that, Tatisha, I'm going to ask you to go first, Naeem second, and then Andrea third. Tell us about how long you worked, what was the industry, why did you consider independent schools, what's been the professional journey?
Absolutely. So many, many, many years ago, after undergrad, I decided, well, first of all, I went to undergraduate school for television and radio production and really wanted to be either a scriptwriter or do some work around producing television, particularly for women of color. I started off working as an intern. I'm going to age myself for the Montel Williams show. It was a talk show back in the 90s. And that was a lot of fun. And I really got to learn about production. I was also happy to be working for a man of color who really reached out to community work. And I started thinking, I like script writing, but I really am interested in what was called like public affairs back in network and broadcasting television at the time. I transitioned to a job at Lifetime Television, which was touted as a women's network, particularly at that time. And I really, again, started to see myself as someone that wanted to produce television for people that looked like me. 9/11 happened, and the television industry, particularly here in New York City, kind of went silent for a while, and a lot of productions were had moved out of the city or were stopping production here and moved to LA, and I had to make a choice. Do I want to go to California, or do I really want to stay in New York? And I'm sorry, Thoroughest Borough, I'm from Brooklyn, and I really did not want to transition myself and my life to LA. And so I had to think, if I stay in television, what do I want to do? And education has always been in the back of my mind. Even when I was doing my production work as an undergrad, my professors were like, you're really good at showing other people how to like stage lighting or how to set up a shot. You might think about being a teacher. And I was like, oh, maybe when I'm older. Well, older happened. And so I wound up going to grad school at Bank Street College of Education for general ed, but also really thinking about literacy, because storytelling and reading and all of those things are still very much a part of what I wanted to do. So I figured I can't do it through a script, but I can do it through helping children learn the thing that I love the most, which is reading and literature and books. And so that's how I transitioned. I also worked for a while at Lincoln Center, and they have a program called Meet the Artists. And so I was able to really help tailor programming at Lincoln Center for educators and help them sort of decide Do I do something with the opera? How do I introduce these topics and ideas to young children? And I did a lot of work being a liaison between that program and educators. And so all of that kind of set me up to really realize how much I love the classroom and I love being around young people. And that's pretty much how I transferred from the entertainment industry to education, which is somewhat like the entertainment industry, if you think about it. Oh, sorry,
Uh,
one second on the education, I think, maybe 21 years now? I think so.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, so my professional journey has taken a number of twists and turns, always kind of ending up in education for all the wonderful reasons that I think folks are interested in going into education. I'll just start from the very beginning and then fast forward to the end and leave time for you guys to ask me questions if the spirit so moves you. But as a young kid, my father told me when I was a kid and had dreams of playing for the Oakland A's that you'll never run fast enough, jump high enough, hit ball far enough, be strong enough to be a professional baseball player. But you can excel in math, science, humanities, anything you put your mind to. Your mind is limitless. So as much as you focus on your athletic career, focus on your education as well. And that kind of stuck with me through all the professional kind of avenues that I've traveled. So I've always had a reverence, a respect, and just a belief that a focus on education can open up doors that otherwise might remain closed. So I thought I was going to be a heart surgeon as I was coming out of college, to kind of fast forward to my college years. So focused on human biology with concentration in epidemiology and prevention of cardiovascular disease. And in the year after I graduated, and my second year of med school, because I combined my senior year and my first year of med classes together, my advisor told me to take a break. He's like, you're going to flame out. You're moving too fast, too quickly. He's like, find a job teaching science so you keep that thought process fresh in your mind, but take a year off and come back, finish med school, do your residency, your internship, and then long live you as a surgeon, right? So I started interviewing at different public schools in the Bay Area, and was just kind of frustrated with what I saw and the commitment to student education, the student experience. So young idealistic dreamer I was, got together with a few friends and we actually started a charter high school in San Jose. Realized I knew nothing about organizational development, nothing about finance, nothing about anything that had to do with running an organization, running a company, but knew that I loved teaching and knew that I loved being in that educational setting. So my grand plan was to go to business school and then finish med school and then figure out what I wanted to do with my life. So my journey kind of took me to business school, sales and trading on equity side for a little bit, nonprofit world for a little bit, back to a merchant bank, managing investment portfolios for ultra high net worth individuals, got into the tech sector, tech philanthropy, all with a focus on finance and operations, and then also kind of focusing on ultra high net worth individuals and managing their investment portfolios, whether they were in the markets or real estate. And I have a ton of stories I can share and a ton of experiences that, kind of made me long in the tooth and really sharpened my skills. And I realized that I needed to be back in a place where I felt like I was part of the community, felt like I was applying my skills to an organization and to a trade and to a profession that made me feel good and also gave back to the communities that helped me get to where I was at professionally. And I knew I would end up in independent schools, and kind of journeyed to a couple different ones. And now I'm at Brooklyn Friends School and literally could not be happier. So that's kind of from sixth grade me all the way to middle-aged me, and happy to expand or expound on any of that if you guys have questions.
Naeem, what a fantastic journey. I enjoyed listening to that. And Tatisha, I did not know that about you. I am going to start my story around graduate school. When I was, undergraduate, my bachelor's degree is in history and English. and I decided to go on for a master's degree in history, thinking that I was going to become a professor of history. So when I got into my master's program and was working on a lot of, the very heavy level courses that you take and seminars, and then working on my master's thesis by myself alone in a library. And I thought, while this work is so important, I just felt like it was too individual and sort of not community based in the way that I was accustomed to working with people. And so when I looked at that, I thought, well, I will move to New York City and the land of museums. I'd also, as an undergrad, done internships at museums. And so that felt very comfortable to me. So when I got here, I substitute taught in the public schools. And that was quite an eye opener for what it looked like to be in New York City public schools and really serving students, but not necessarily in the way that I felt put students at the center. I was still in my early 20s, very idealistic about what I thought could be done or what would help, and my capacity for figuring out what I wanted to do was part of that. And so I decided that I would sort of take the bend towards museums and table classroom teaching for a while, even though I kind of dabbled in that as a substitute teacher. So when I realized that I could build a career, and I thought, okay, museums in the nonprofit world, this is me. It's very focused. It's centering a history of New York City from the African perspective that I wanted to. And so I spent a lot of time developing curriculum and tours that brought students into the place. I went out to places, and I went everywhere in the 5 boroughs. So being new to New York in the early 2000s, I was taking the train to the Bronx. I was in Staten Island the next day. And so it really gave me a sense of what the city looked and felt like, just for an ordinary person trying to understand history. And that really excited me. And I realized that as much as I loved working with students and teachers in the nonprofit world, of course, your punishment for doing something with taking initiative and doing it well means you get more work. And so I felt like I was doing 3 jobs, 7 days a week, and then doing this in the evenings and doing this on Saturdays and Sundays. And I thought, for all of this, I learned a ton, and I'm grateful for that. But then I was fried and feeling like this is not compatible to the lifestyle, especially once I became a parent. And I thought, well, with my experience working with students and teachers, I began to think about what else I could do. But then I also, in the nonprofit world, was getting promoted to positions that had me managing like a set of people or educators who are teaching, then working on curriculum, piloting it in schools, and then taking that feedback. But then that work, of course, took me further and farther away from being the one that got to do it, to be with students, to ask them questions about what this history meant to them, what it felt like to them. And so instead of having one-off experiences, I realized in working with teachers, well, I want to spend 9 months with students and take them through their learning process from September to June and see how much they grow and have a chance to build that connection and relationship with colleagues doing the same thing. So that's when I thought about independent schools. And because I had been running all over the place in different schools, I had a pretty good sense that I wanted to be in a Brooklyn. So Brooklyn again, I wanted to be in a Brooklyn independent school. And so I heard from another colleague about the job fair for diversity and thought, I'll give it a shot. I don't know what to expect, but that's where I want to go. And so going to the job fair is what kind of helped me refine what kind of school I was looking for based on my talents and what I thought I could offer. And that's what led me to independent schools.
So I have to say that as much as I knew your individual stories, when I hear all 3 of you share the different twists and turns that life provided and just the depth of experience, I'm so grateful that you all agreed this evening, because the ways in which you complement one another is pretty spectacular. And to know that you, Tatisha, I know you've been to the job fair representing your schools. Andrea, I know you've both been as a candidate, you just shared that with us, and you've also represented Polly. at the job fair. And Naeem, I'm sure you've been to many, many job fairs in your lifetime, although you've never been to the NYSAIS one. And feel free to come on Saturday, February 22nd. I think one of the things that's really most interesting about this particular experience, and I want to tease out some of what you started to allude to, is what were some of the transferable skills that you were able to apply when you started the interview process? And I think it's important for our audience to hear it's okay to brag. You know, humility is important, and you have a couple of minutes to make a really good first impression at the job fair, at the tables. You have one shot via email to put together documents, a cover letter, read a job description really carefully, and a cover letter that really communicates more about who you are and what is your value add to a place and what draws you to a position and a place at that moment, and certainly how you tell the story in your CV or in your resume. So if you know, whoever wants to go first, what were some of the transferable skills that you were able to apply in your first role or in the roles that you have been in within independent schools?
Liz, I can go first. Well, first of all, three of my jobs, I also got through the job fair. And I also remember being in a room with you, Liz, and my first sort of go around and thinking, I like this lady. So thank you for that. Because it is a little nerve-wracking when you're going in with lots of other people and your resume in your hand. I think honestly, one of my first, well, I went to independent school. Let's start there. So I knew the culture. I knew that there was not many opportunities in my career, in my life as a student, to have mirrors in my classroom. And so once I committed to education and specifically progressive ed, I kind of knew the schools that I was most interested in working in. So I had a little bit of some background knowledge on that, but I wasn't always sure on the age group. And so I remember being at a job fair and I met someone from the Hackley School. And this was back in the day when they used to sort of stuff envelopes on walls, and schools would put slips and say they were interested in seeing you. And so again, dating myself, but that's okay. And there was a lower school head from the Hackley School who specifically said, I want you, because I know you can teach, but I want that journalism and television background, because he wanted to build a television news studio for the kids. And so he was like, I see that you're from Brooklyn, but it doesn't matter. I need you at my school. And so I didn't necessarily with him have to necessarily brag, but he sort of saw that there were skills that I had that he wanted to bring to his school and his program. That's one thing. I think the transferable skills that I bring, I'm a great writer. I will say that still to this day. And a lot of the work that you have to do, whether it be just not just emails, but letters to families, letters to providers, being able to write newsletters and or update the DEI webpage on your school's website, all of those things require strong writing and communication skills. I do a lot of sort of even communication again with providers because we are a special ed school. So being able to read certain things and understand and dissect those things. So having strong communication skills on par. Public speaking, like I like to talk and I will tell you things about my school and be able to succinctly win you to tell you how much we can provide for your student and or if you're an educator, why you should work in my school. So being able to also comfortably make people comfortable, particularly being a DEI practitioner, an equity practitioner, people sometimes may not always receive you. There might have some fear or just some anxiety around the work that I do. So being able to sort of quell the room and let people see who you are and also what your school provides and offers and being able to communicate that well. I'm a strong collaborator. I like working with people. I find group work and group projects, even in school, I was like, sign me up. Some people are like, no, I want to work by myself, and I respect that, but I like to collaborate with folks. And I think that that's another skill that I have. And I love to learn. Like, I always want to know more. I'm always trying to figure out what else there is to know, whether it be about a person or a time period or a time frame. Like I really like the process of learning. and I love being in school, and I never want to stop that feeling. So I think those are some of the things that you bring to the classroom, because in independent schools, you really much have the freedom to create your own curriculum. And I think that that is another part um, of the job that I love and that I was hungry for. Like, I didn't want someone to give me a curriculum and tell me what my kids wanted and or needed. I wanted to work with the kids to develop the curriculum as we went. And so that was something important for me and to me.
Yeah, I mean, so I have so many thoughts on this question. I'll answer it very pragmatically, and then I might zoom out for a second and just share if you guys give me the space and grace to do so. So for me in my role, I think bringing that analytical thinking, that systems thinking, problem solving, all of that it's transferable, whether you're looking at P&Ls, income statements, pro formas, operational plans for a tech company or an independent school. Numbers add up, net is net, and the problems that you face from an operational and a business and a finance perspective, vary a little bit because they'll be industry specific, but the way you approach them and the way you have to problem solve is very transferable. I think one of the things that I've learned both inside and outside of independent schools is just being innovative. What's interesting is that word innovative, depending on your industry, is either a good word or it's a curse word. So in the tech field, everything, you innovate, you innovate, you innovate. Microchips turnover every 16 months, innovate, innovate. In some of the independent schools where folks are kind of used to what they're doing, they've kind of hit their stride, they're comfortable, innovation is scary, right? So I've just adopted it to say, let's stay curious. Same concept. Let's think about what we're doing. Let's be curious about how we can do it better. And if we find a solution that's more optimal than what we're doing, let's explore. And if it doesn't work out well, we can drop back and punt, right? And then we can figure out something else. So remaining curious, keeping that innovative, that kind of mindset and approaching problems and challenges from perspective of what can I do that's best for the organization and best for the student that'll benefit from it, all transferable skills. Just zooming out for a second, but Liz, you got me just reminiscing now. And it's interesting because I think early in my career, when I kind of dubbed myself that idealistic dreamer, I knew nothing about schools, but started a charter high school, right? It's like, I have an idea, I have the passion, I have the energy, I have the focus, I have a team, like, let's go change the world. And then as my career, academics, life kind of zigzag path changed, I found myself looking at job postings and saying, oh, so they want 5 years of experience. I only have 4, so I guess I'm not good enough for this one. Oh man, gosh, look at all the responsibilities. I do 85% of them, but the other 15%, I don't have depth of knowledge, and so I'm not good enough. And I started to question, like, am I good enough based on the words that are in the posting? And I undervalued the fact that, one, I had deep skill set, but two, I had a story to tell. And I think what's super important and almost unique to working in independent schools is check the box of the skill set necessary, but in the interviews, in the conversations, in the networks, in the opportunities you have to speak with people, don't be afraid to tell your story. Similar to how Liz started this conversation. Because what I've realized in independent schools that I've been a part of, unlike tech, unlike some of the other sectors, not only is your skill set wanted and needed, but you are, your journey, your story, your narrative, because the way you're going to impact that community will transcend what the nuts and bolts and essential duties of your job are, right? One of the most beautiful things I was able to do in an independent school world that I was never able to do in any other industry was coach football. And some of my most wonderful memories and the students that still reach out to me to this day, now that they're grown and living their own lives, were from that experience. I don't have auditors calling me on New Year's, be like, hey, Naeem, Happy New Year. Remember that audit back in 2014? Good job. No, but the students that you touch in drama and theater, in the classroom, on the athletic fields, just in the community, I think is huge. So I want to double click on the fact that while we always tend to focus on what are the essential duties, what am I experiencing, can I check all the boxes to make myself the ideal candidate? That's only a fraction of what I've experienced in terms of interviewing at independent schools and hiring teams at independent schools. I want to hire a good person with a good story and a passion for the work they're doing and the people in the communities and the families that they're going to serve. So don't beat yourself up if you don't check all the boxes, and don't undervalue your own journey, your own story, and the uniqueness that makes you such a special individual. Bring all of that to the interviews, bring all of that to your CVs, make that shine in your resumes. And I think you'll stand out in a way that you otherwise won't be able to create if you kind of neglect the uniqueness that makes you special. So again, I'll get off my soapbox, but Liz, you got me thinking about that.
Thank you. Andrea, how about you?
What was most helpful in thinking about transferable skills, especially thinking back to going to the job fair? I spent a lot of time asking myself what it was I could offer and what I wanted, and being able to tell that story about myself confidently and well with some specific examples. So the job fair has so many different incredible schools and people to meet. It's hard to try to reach out to everyone. So if you think about and focus on what it is you really want, what sort of schools can you connect with in that way, I think it was helpful to me to be able to say, yes, here's what I'm excited about in teaching history with students. Here's an example of that, or a project that I was particularly excited about. Or I happened to see on your school's website, you do this huge section on New York City history, and that's something that you wanted to grow. And here's a way that I could see myself contributing to that. I think being able to say something very specific and pithy, but something that I obviously deeply cared for, was a way that I genuinely wanted and could see myself in the particular schools who I had sort of studied and read up on. Where are they at in terms of doing curriculum or teaching in this way? And how could I enhance that? And one of the other things that I always think about when I was in the nonprofit world is you're doing everything. So from shoveling the sidewalk because the teachers are coming for a 9 a.m. PD, and is the coffee hot? And do we have pastries? And is the historian here to speak? And do we have the books? And have the sort of advisors or people, the mentors that I've always admired were the ones who didn't ask me to do anything that they weren't willing to do themselves. And so learning from that example, that's what I try to bring. And so I'm not fussed by, nobody told me what to do when the toilet flooded in the second grade classroom and you have students in the middle of a lesson. That's not something that's covered in school, but I was like, all right, I've been through something similar. We're going to do this and do this and being able to be adaptable and flexible, I think, is something that's so important. And that's from the very logistical things to the very sort of philosophical and sort of interpersonal things when you're talking about important issues, current events, things that are very personal to people, to be able to say, I do want to learn about this. I am listening to you, because, I'm sure, worked with people who say, yes, we are excited about this project, but that's for other people, not, you don't mean me. But being able to say, yes, you do mean me, and I'm willing to dig in and take this on, from having worn many hats before, that's something that was very applicable to the classroom. And so I wasn't fussed. I think one of the questions people asked me the most in my first year of teaching was, well, aren't you tired? I was sort of like, tired from what? I came from the nonprofit world where you worked every day and every night, and we're having to do the reports about it and follow up about this. And so to me, having that diversity of sort of practice behind putting on an event or pulling together a lesson and talking in front of people, but being able to speak about some specific examples in a job fair setting that I knew were strengths of mine, I think serves you well. So really knowing your own story and telling it confidently in ways that connect to institutions you can see yourself at or contributing to is what I think is important.
Wonderful, fantastic, not only examples, but embedded in each of your stories and responses is really a very clear series of, there's just advice in there, really good kernels of insight and suggestions that I love, and I hope that everyone's taking notes. as they're listening. I'm curious if one of you could just take us through what should candidates expect from the hiring process? If you're a teaching candidate, what should you expect? And then if you're more of an administrative colleague, what should you expect? So I'm asking one of you to talk about teaching and one of you to talk about an administrative role in schools.
I'll talk about the teaching one because one of the first and easiest things I think people don't realize when they're going through the application process, if they're called in to do, say, a demonstration lesson or to connect, it is okay to ask if you can reach out to a current teacher or reach out via email, or can that person put you in touch with either the grade level or some teacher to ask, what sort of broad topics have you covered this year? Would it be okay if I did a lesson about X? And that way you kind of have a head start so that you don't get into a situation where you are sort of teaching past or way beyond what they thought you were going to present about. And so from the teaching aspect, I think it's important to ask questions because they will tell you if, oh, this is something we can tell you, or if they can't, then they won't. But help yourself and don't be afraid to ask what sorts of either grade level. Sometimes they might tell you a little bit about the subject areas that they've covered. And usually they tend to be about 30 minutes long. So make sure that whatever it is you're going to do with the group, that you've actually practiced it, like timed it, written in anything you give to students, make sure that you've done it yourself so that you know as an adult, if it took you 5 minutes or 10 minutes, factor in how long that's going to take. And better if you've sort of rehearsed it with someone, anyone, before you try to do it cold for a brand new one when the stakes seem like they're so much higher.
I
Thanks,
could
Andrea.
admin role. And Andrea, I love that answer because that's exactly what we're looking for. I think it also depends, Liz, on the sort of administrative role you're looking for. And so one thing I'll say, no matter if you're going to the business office or middle, upper, lower school, et cetera, like really know the mission of the school, like who they are, what do they believe in, what are their beliefs, thinking about the community of the space that you're in, because that is important for you to know. And they're going to be looking to see that you can sort of buy into that situation. And so if you know that you really like parochial school or religious institution, or you want something that's very progressive, if you're used to being called Ms., Mix, Mr., and they all go by first names, like all of those things, particularly if you're not coming from an independent school world, like find out all of those things, right? So that you are, one, knowledgeable about the space, because people want to know that you've not just read the website, but really have a sense of who the school is and who they're serving. So that's important. You know, like do your homework and really know the institution for what they are and who they are. Also thinking about like what are those extra skills that you may bring to the table. If you're looking to, again, maybe be a middle school director, but have experience with upper school, what could you provide and offer that's sort of outside of the box, that extends beyond the job description? Schools are always looking to tap into whatever that you have and bring to the table, and we will be glad to put you in the theater department if you'd like to do that. If you want to do a production, again, if you're good with television and can write things, like whatever you've got going on, like you don't have to stick to what is literally listed in your job description. And then I think also always talk about the students. That is the primary role, no matter where you are in the school. Like we want to know that you are at least kid-centered and understand that even if, again, if you're in the business office, the business of the school is for students. And so at the very least, even if you haven't taught before or coached or done a summer camp, any of those things, there still needs to be an understanding that you understand your purpose there. And the purpose of the school is to serve our students. And so that's really important for you to mention and be able to speak to. I recently had an interview for a tech role, and a lot of the questions we asked were still about, yes, you need to know Veracross and all these other things, but what excites you about working with kids? How does this work support our students and their families? What happens if a family has a data entry problem? Like all of those things, again, go back to your main constituency, which are the students and their families.
Name?
I think that's all wonderful, great information. The only thing I would add to that is, you know, when you get to the stage where you're on site, and I'm speaking specifically about admin roles, but I'm sure it's very similar for teaching roles as well. Be prepared for a long day. It's going to be a long day. I mean, I was not expecting that when I got into independent schools, but my interview day at every independent school I've worked at was more rigorous and thorough in terms of the number of folks I met with, the length of the day, and the diversity of questions asked than any other industry, from merchant banking to tech to anything. Like it's a fun day. It moves by quickly, but it's a long day. So bring your energy and understand that you're going to be there for a while, and you'll be speaking with some folks who will have subject matter expertise in the area that you're interviewing for. And then you'll be speaking to folks who might not have subject matter expertise in the area you're interviewing for. And you still need to make that connection with everyone. Demonstrate your expertise, but also make the connection with folks who might not care about a pro forma balance sheet or income statement or something like that. And I think the comment about speaking about students and the student experience and why you're interested in working in the industry and working with and for students is huge, because that's universal. Whether you're in the classroom or in an office, we're all there for the students and for the student experience to maximize it. So being able to touch on that and really speaking genuinely about your interest in working in that type of an industry, I think is hugely important as well.
Fantastic. You know, one of the biggest mistakes that I think candidates, whether they're candidates for a teaching position or candidates for an administrative position, is the inability to understand the value of a follow-up. That follow-up message, that note, you're going to receive some sort of overview of who you're going to be meeting with. It would be really important for you either to send a thank you note acknowledging the time and what you learned and what your takeaways were. It doesn't have to be super long. It's just an acknowledgement of the process and the experience that you just shared with them. So I definitely want to remind anyone listening the importance of following up. I am definitely somebody who loves a handwritten card. I know that that is so 20th century, and you know, that's okay. But I also, you know, just want to acknowledge that it is a very long day. And for those of you that are making career transitions, and you're not sure if you're really interested in making the career transition into a classroom teaching experience, I say this to people all the time. First of all, looking for a job is a job in itself. So be organized. Know who you sent what to on what day, who followed up, who didn't. If you're really interested, then, you know, keep responding. Some schools are very particular, and they'll work with a search firm depending on specific positions, while others will not. Others will work directly and host their own search processes. So pay very special attention to who and is meant to receive your materials and what materials they are requesting, and follow, please, please, please follow what they are telling you to submit. I say this because in the hiring that I do, I'm very specific about what I ask for. I ask for a cover letter. I ask for a resume or CV. And depending on the position, I'll ask for some sort of educational philosophy statement or something along those lines, statement of education. When I start getting transcripts, when I start getting letters of recommendation, when I start getting here are all the things I've published, those are really important elements of who you are. They were not requested. Please do not do that. Just follow what is being asked. If people want more information, they will ask you for more information. The only exception to this during an interview, and I want to be really candid, if you are an artist, a musician, and you want to bring either to the job fair or to your interview your portfolio, or perhaps a video of your work or your performance, that may be the exception. but please don't send the additional pieces. Tatisha, I saw you came off mute. What else would you like to share with us of like the do's and the don'ts?
I would, so yes, to everything that you've just said, Liz, and I don't want to be repetitive, but I will say I'm also old school and really appreciate a thank you note, a card or something, because I think that's just still important in our industry. And it also to me shows your communication skills, right? And your follow through, and that you're really interested and grateful for the opportunity. And also, please, I don't, well, people sometimes do send also extra things. And I'm like, no, friend, I actually didn't ask for that. So thank you, but no, thank you. I think also just to quickly go back to the job fair itself, that it's a pretty crowded space and it can be loud and it's very busy. And so also sometimes being able to speak to yourself and your points quickly and clearly is important as well, because there are, 3 or 4 of us and like hundreds of you. And so being able to speak to what you can offer, provide, and then even following up at a later date is important, but you don't have to necessarily list every single thing that you know how to do in that moment at that time. If you provide your CV or your resume and or your cover letter or something to that aspect is fine enough, because we can then delve in and the school will connect with you if they're interested. I think those are oh, and please, please be on time for your interview. If there, listen, we're in New York City and things happen. I completely can understand and relate to that. If it's possible, let someone know that you're running late, but you're on your way. And if things happen in the world and you've received another offer or something else has happened in your life and you don't intend on coming, also please let people know. It's just respectful of people's time.
Absolutely. My goodness. Ooh. I also want to say, and thank you for mentioning just the value of a handwritten card. I want to do a both and at this moment, because I want to recognize that we're in 2025 and at the same time, there is a value to you taking the time for a handwritten note. And what I always say to people is, if you've interviewed, send the email because it's fairly quick and it's responsive. You don't know how long. Most of our schools are hiring with search committees. Most of our schools are gathering feedback from everyone who interacted with you over the course of the day. And so it is really important for you to at least acknowledge via email so that something quickly can be circulated amongst the people so that it continues to be, you continue to be relevant in their discernment process of determining what feedback they're going to offer and how they felt about you and your visit, and then follow up with a handwritten note. That's all I want to add. I'm super curious if you could very broadly just speak to, each of you transitioned from different industries, and some of you have transitioned multiple times and multiple twists and turns. In general, can you paint a picture of just salaries and benefits in terms of the comparison from a very broad level, not the specifics? Talk about some of the trade-offs, talk about some of the incentives, some of the opportunities, the professional development, the time that you have, and of course, as always, the joy that we ideally experience working in schools, ideally with other adults who like to be around young people, and certainly the young people and the fun that is. Naeem, I just love that you said you got to coach football. And I mean, I know what that means as a former coach. Tatisha, to hear that they were interested in you designing a television studio and a program. And Andrea, there's no doubt in my mind that you were so passionate about working at the Brooklyn Historical Society and just the work that you've done. So what are some of those other things that you have been able to bring to the employment experiences that you've had that really help you think about salaries and benefits, I think, a little bit differently, more broadly? And anybody can take that and then anybody can add on.
I can start. I would say I think it's a little obvious that the television industry pay cycle is different than education, right? Like I didn't come into education thinking that I would be making the same amount of money or have an office with like screens and access to shows and all of those things, right? And so I knew that I would be making a different pay scale, and I was completely fine with it because honestly, and I know it might sound corny, but like the joy of working with young people to me is like one of the most rewarding things that I do and can do or that anyone can do. Like you have to love children. Like there's no doubt in my mind, even if you are in the business office or facilities, like children are again our business. And so you have to be able to understand and reconcile yourself with that. And richness, I believe, comes in many ways, and monetary richness is not the only way. I have to say though, like my professional development and being able to go to conferences, I have leeway to speak and provide information to other educators about the things that we do here at my school. And so I do get to travel several times a year. I think that didn't happen right away when I was a classroom teacher. I probably went to one local conference and one sort of faraway conference per year, depending on the PD budget. As I said, right, the PD budget. I don't know, but I also think like you can dream and create. And so I've started book clubs for kids. I started book clubs for families, for fellow faculty members. There's a lot of things that you can do outside of your classroom day if you're a classroom teacher or outside of your business or other sort of staffing parameters. If you can think about it and dream it, I'm pretty much sure they'll give you the okay because that's the beauty of independent schools that we're allowed to sort of make it work for us and for our kids in the ways that they need to. And I think that also makes it so that you're not bored. Like I've never been bored. There's always something else to do. Every day is different. Like I try to have my sort of organization in my calendar and my schedule. And then I laugh sometimes because I'm like, I've done nothing that I put in my planner today. Not a single thing that I thought I was going to do has happened, right? So I think also understanding you have to be flexible and go with the flow. My head of school likes to say pivot. And so like I'm a pivot and fool. Like I get to be able to move around and do things. And I find that rewarding because I like to, again, I like to learn and I like to not have to do the same thing every day. If there are things that you like, if you are a little bit more, like regimented and want to find some continuity, there's ways to do that. But if you also can take on the fact that there's things that could be moving and shifting parts, that's okay too. And it's good because that's what kids do, right? Like, again, that's the joy. Like, I get to build with blocks one day if I'd like to, and I get to do a poetry slam another day. Like, there's lots of ways for you to bring in your creativity. Um, and again, being with kids is just like the best thing. So those are the things that I would recommend people do. And you may not be, a billionaire doing this work, but you are rewarded in so many other ways.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm the finance guy on the panel, so I'm trying not not to get too financy. But I
We
would
know
say
you're fuzzy, don't worry.
I am. I'm a little fuzzy. I'm a little fuzzy too. I would say this. I echo again. If you're looking to maximize your base compensation, looking for performance and annual bonuses, like the independent school world might not be the industry that you really want to focus on in terms of finding that. But I would really challenge folks to zoom out and look at total compensation. So that's just not your base salary. It's looking also at your benefits package. It's looking at your retirement. It's looking at all of the other components that make up your total compensation. And if you're early stage in your career and you're trying to balance climbing, that career ladder, finding your niche industry and what you love doing when you're spending the majority of your waking hours on a Monday through Friday basis, and independent schools is something that's calling to you, it's wonderful. And it gives you the opportunity when you look at your total compensation to build your personal life as well. So whether you're maximizing a contribution that the school is making, and I say this to everyone who, especially early stage career, just throw some money into your 403b, throw some money into your retirement account. If your school is matching at 4%, 5%, 6%, 8%, you're leaving money on the table, tax-free money on the table if you're not contributing. And everyone's like, yeah, but I'm 23. Like, I'm not thinking about retirement. Pay attention to your plan because in 10 or 15 years, or even less than that, you might want to buy a home. You can actually take a loan out against some of these plans as use as a down payment for your home purchase and then pay that back at zero. there's a number of different things you can do to leverage the total benefits package that you're getting from an independent school. So I'd say just don't look at like, oh, how much am I getting every couple of weeks? Look at that entire package and see if that will not only help you build your professional life, but also build your personal life. And then do a little bit of math. Like what is it? Jay-Z says, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. Like, do a little bit of math and calculate your hourly rate. Because one thing that you will benefit from in the independent school world that you won't benefit from in a number of other sectors is the time off. And I'm speaking from the business office. So I'm not even thinking about teachers and summer vacation. I'm just thinking about like, I get Monday off again? Like, I'm in California right now because my head of school was like, I know you got an event that you're going to on the weekend. Like, hey, just stay out there, do your thing, work from home on Monday, come back after the storm on Tuesday in Berlin and enjoy. Like, understanding that you're part of a community and understanding that from the national holidays to the spring breaks to the winter breaks to all of these opportunities are for you to unplug, recharge your batteries, bring your best self to work, and also have some time to build your personal life. So that work-life balance, I think, is baked into independent schools when you start to look at the school calendar. And then, as others have said, as you're starting to interview at schools, interview those schools as well, because you're joining a community. And if you have a head of school, if you have a direct supervisor, if you have folks who are around you who are supporting your professional growth, but also who balance you as an individual and understanding you have personal aspirations and will help support you achieve those goals as well, now you're making your total compensation hand over fist in a way that you're growing your career, you're growing your own individual financial position, and you're enjoying your professional and personal life at the same time. I've been at merchant banks, I've been at tech companies, I've benefited from wonderful base salaries, and I got a whole lot of gray hair, and I worked a whole lot of the years off the back end of my life for that. And that's not what I want to do. I want to be proud of what I do. I want to earn a living wage, a competitive wage, and I want to enjoy life both at work and outside of work. So all that to say, a bunch of words to say, look at the total compensation of the package for the jobs that you're going for, because you might be surprised at just how generous they are.
Thank you. Thank you both. Andrea, is there anything else you would like to add before I wrap us up?
No, really, both Tatisha and Naeem spoke my mind, and that was my journey. I took a 25% pay cut to move from nonprofit to independent schools back then, but knowing sort of the trajectory and thinking longer term, not immediately, is what helped me know that that was the right decision for me, even though it was tough at first.
Thank you. So I'm going to pause for a second, and I just want to acknowledge a few things. As I said, the job fair is on Saturday, February 22nd. I really want to encourage everyone who is listening to please pre-register, help us spread the word about the job fair. There are some really wonderful opportunities available. I also welcome the chance through email and by phone to connect with any candidates who want me to take a look at their resume in advance, who want to have a conversation, who really want to think about how to present themselves in the best and most attractive light. All of that is part of what it means to prepare for the job fair itself. And even after the job fair, I certainly have been known to support candidates as they are actually going through the process, what I affectionately call the aftermath of the job fair, and like actually interviewing. So please know that I am available and am eager to support you. I would love to see more passionate educators or passionate career transitioners into education, because there's work to be done everywhere. And really our kids are counting on it. They're counting on really dedicated leaders. So with that, I will pause. I will thank you, Andrea, Tatisha, Naeem, for your time, for sharing your stories. I know that we could talk much longer, and I hope those that are listening have really gotten something out of this experience. I know I've certainly learned so much from the three of you, and I'm grateful that you were available to share this evening. Andrew, as always, is our behind the scenes collaborator with technology. Thank you so much. And please feel free to follow up if you have any additional questions. I look forward to seeing everyone on Saturday, February 22nd from 10 to 1 at Columbia Grammar and Prep. Have a great evening, everyone, and stay warm, safe, and safe.